I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. At a press briefing on Thursday, House Republicans recognized National Police Week at the National Law Enforcement Memorial in Washington, D.C. Led by House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, Republicans praised the work of police officers across the country while decrying the defund the police movement. They also accused President Biden and Democrats of soft on crime policies. These are accusations Democrats continue to deny as they point to police funding and federal budgets. As midterms near, focusing on rising crime is a key GOP strategy. Let's listen in to the House Republicans.
Oh, man. Right.
I want to thank you all for coming out today. This is our second annual Back to Blue bike tour. You'll notice the members who are not in a suit, they actually got up and rode on a bike with all the police officers. And to all the officers here, we want to say on behalf of members of Congress, thank you for the job you do. Thank you for being there for us, time in, time out, and for everybody across this nation. Today we're going to have a little program here, and I want to start it off with bringing up the National Law Enforcement Officer Memorial CEO, Marcia Ferranto. Come on up.
Good morning, and thank you, Leader McCarthy, for doing this yet again. And thank you to all the members who made this morning your priority to come and honor the fallen. You know, Police Week means so much to all of us. And to some of us, it means mourning. Mourning the 619 names that we just engraved on the wall. And for others, it's a week of honor, honoring the 23,229 names that we have engraved on this memorial wall. And for others, it means celebration. Celebration of an incredible profession, the profession of law enforcement. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for joining us at the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial. We appreciate everything you do to help us honor the fallen and these heroes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcia. And to everyone, that is what this is about. We want to honor those who've given their life defending and protecting. We also want to hold up the family members that they have been left behind. We want to thank all those who are currently serving. We have a number of members who serve in Congress today who were in law enforcement. But today we welcome the members of law enforcement and their families here to Washington, D.C. I'm glad for the chance to share my gratitude, honor their sacrifices, and hear what's on their mind. They're truly the best among us. 619 officers lost in the line of duty were added to this sacred memorial in Washington, D.C. That's the highest number we've had since 1995. We want to ensure the stories of their sacrifices are not lost to history. This past year's fallen heroes include an individual from my home county, Kern County. In the summer of 2021, Sheriff Deputy Phil Campus was killed in the line of duty when his SWAT team responded to a domestic violence call. He was only 35 years old. By all accounts, Deputy Campus was a model officer. He had recently been named Deputy of the Month, an award for those who exemplify what it means to serve others. Behind the uniform, friends remember him as a devoted family man. I remember sitting with Sheriff Donnie Youngblood and the rest of the SWAT team, the look on their faces, to tell the stories of Philip. Being an officer isn't a job, it's a way of life. It's a bond that's greater than any can have in any occupation, because they're risking their lives together. They knew each other's families. They've been to the birthday parties, the celebrations, the sorrows, all the way through. Philip attended the same the same elementary school, the same junior high as I did. He was a Marine veteran. He was an individual who always came to the call. As we honor Deputy Campus, we continue to pray for his wife, his young children, and his family who are honored not just today, but every single day. The sacrifices of our law enforcement officers are a clear reminder that standing with law enforcement isn't something we can do for only 1 week. And I want to be very clear. The men and women behind me who serve in Congress do not support a defunding of the police. We believe in increased funding of the officers. We believe in upholding the law on the books, not picking and choosing from a DA of what they think is important. We believe in a safe community. We believe in the honor of the job, and we want you to be able to go to your job and come home to your families as well. We have a number of members who have worn the badge, been in the line of duty, and now is serving in Congress. And the first I want to bring up from Florida, our Sheriff Rutherford.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. You know, as a former sheriff, I can tell you I've seen way too many brave men and women's names go up on these walls. And as we honor law enforcement this week, we remember those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for their individual communities. Sadly, police killings, especially ambush killings, are on the rise. There were 71 officers killed in 2021. That's a 59% increase. A law enforcement officer is killed in America almost every 5 days. So what this morning is about and what this week is about is promises made and promises kept. These men and women, when they first pinned on their badge, they were promised that if you go into that breach between the bad guys and the community you serve, and you pay that ultimate sacrifice, you will never be forgotten. That's the promise. Because a man is not dead until he's forgotten. So today is about promises made and promises kept. And I thank all of you for being here to help us keep that promise. God bless.
Thank you, Sheriff. To our other sheriff, freshman came from Texas. He's given his life to law enforcement, now continuing to serve. Congressman Troy Nehls.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Marcia, for what you do for law enforcement each and every day, honoring the sacrifices. And on National Police Week, we honor those who paid the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. And today I am here to honor Fort Bend County Deputy Constable Caleb Rule, who tragically lost his life on the front line. And stories like Caleb's are a powerful reminder of the sacrifice law enforcement officers make every day. They are heroes, not only to the communities they protected, but to the entire nation. And as a former sheriff who worked alongside heroes like Caleb, I have experienced the pain and sorrow when a brother or sister in blue gives their life in service to their community. I have grieved alongside their friends, families, and fellow officers. And I am honored to be here today to pay tribute to these brave individuals. We will never forget those like Caleb who selflessly sacrificed everything for those they served. Assaults on our law enforcement must come to an end. Even in these difficult times, know that the God-fearing, God-loving American people stand shoulder to shoulder with you. God bless our law enforcement officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. And to a member who I think she may represent more officers than any other district, and she is always there for them, Congresswoman Malatakis.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you to everyone who is gathered here today to honor our police officers. I see not only a constituent of mine, but I also see the president of the New York Police Department Sergeants Benevolent Association. Vinnie Valalong is in the back. Thank you for being here. Sadly, in New York, we have already seen 8 police officers shot in our city. That is already surpassing the numbers of 2021. So it is a crisis, what we're facing in our city. And unfortunately, there are a number of policies that have been put in place that have led to what I believe the emboldening of criminals. And I'm here today to not just remember our 2 fallen ones that we've lost in January. We started off the year very wrong, and we lost police officer Mora and Rivera. But also to highlight what happened this week when a career criminal who had been arrested 9 times was released back onto the street and shot a police officer. Thankfully, that individual is dead, but the police officer is alive. The reality is the laws that are being put in place in some of our states and our cities have led to crime skyrocketing. In New York City, we're seeing nearly every category rising since the 2020 bail law took effect. Then you saw the New York City Council defund the police, $1 billion. You're seeing a parole board appointed by our governor that has released over 16 cop killers in the last few years. And you're also seeing a cop killer invited by one of our state universities to come speak. So I know I speak on behalf of my colleagues from New York, particularly those who are here. I see Claudia Tenney and John Katko. This is not just a plea for our local and state officials to make changes, to protect our police, to give them the resources they need to do their job, to keep us safe, but also to keep themselves safe so they return home to their families. But it's also a warning to all the other municipalities and states that are looking to do the things that New York has done. So let's be supportive of our law enforcement. That's why we're here today. And we hope everyone will join us in making sure that our law enforcement have the resources and the tools that they need to do their job each and every day. Thank you.
I want to thank you all for coming. I want to say a special thank you to Black Rifle Coffee Company. They've got a brand out there, Thin Blue Line of coffee. And some of the proceeds go to the families that have been left behind for those officers. But to Marcia, thank you for such a beautiful memorial. And as we add more names, we will continue to remember so no one is ever forgotten. With that, we can open it up for questions. Yes, sir.
Can you talk about what specific policies a Republican-controlled House has put forward to address rising crime rates?
Oh, thank you so very much. You know, we have the American Security Task Force that will soon be rolling out our law enforcement agenda. I got Congressman Katko here. They could touch on some of those. First and foremost, we want to make sure the officers have all the equipment they need, that they're secure. We want to make sure they have the training they need. It's not a defunding, it's a funding of the police. We also provide a lot of cop grants throughout to communities. But some of these communities have district attorneys, as you've just heard from Nicole Malatakis, that are having a revolving door and not upholding the laws. These officers, these men and women, are protecting the community, arresting bad people, and then getting back out. We believe if people are taking these cop grants, these DAs should be upholding the law and not picking and choosing. I've watched what's happened in LA, crime continuing to rise, officers doing their jobs, but you had a number of Democrats who wanted to defund them and actually defund the police. You've got a high number retiring based upon some of that, and then you've got a DA not upholding the law. Crime has become one of the #1 issues in this country where people feel unsafe to go outside. And a lot of that is driven from the policies that we see from the other side of the aisle. We will reverse that. We will focus as one of our major elements, as I said, on the Security Task Force that will roll out in the commitment to America of greater funding for police, greater training, more community policing, and more pushing of a DA to uphold the law that are on the books. Any other questions? Yes.
On crime, it's hard not to also think about the border, southern border, and I'm wondering, with Title 42 still set to end this month, at the end of this month, what are Republicans doing to try to either prepare for that influx or maybe stop Title 42?
Well, first and foremost, Title 42 should not be lifted. For everyone who doesn't understand Title 42, it simply says, across the border illegally, you could be country of origin. I think that's appropriate thing to do. Our border is not secure, and what has happened to that? More than 1 million people have come across this border. But more importantly, what is the #1 killer of Americans between the ages of 18 and 45? Fentanyl. And where does that come from? Across this border. You know who else comes across this border? People who are on the terrorist watch list. I'm going to bring Congressman Katko up, who is the ranking member of Homeland, to touch a little on this, a former prosecutor as well. If I correctly, before you were elected, you were named, didn't you get the award for the National Prosecutor of the Year? 3 times, okay, but who's counting? But why don't you come up, Mr. Katko? When we went down to the border a year ago, speaking to the border officers, they told us they had just caught 2 people on the terrorist watch list, not from Central America, but from Yemen. When we provided that to the press, you know what the Democrat members across the aisle said? Congressman Gallegos, who serves on Armed Services, who's a subcommittee chair. First thing he says, well, I get to have intel just like Kevin McCarthy, and that Kevin McCarthy's not telling the truth. Well, when we provided the truth to him, did he then go try to secure the border more? No, never even apologized. The first thing they did was to try to withhold that information as it progressed further. And that's why I want to call Mr. Katko up to lay out some of the things that we are doing about the border as well.
Thanks, Kevin. And, you know, at the border, when I first started out in 1994, as a prosecutor, I was going after cartels in El Paso. I've never seen the border like it is now. And every single law enforcement, every single community in this country is being affected by it. We're burying our children at record rates, like Kevin noted, because of the fentanyl that's coming across. The cartels have never been more powerful. So the answer is quite simple. Keep 42 in place. We're going to come up with proposals. We're going to finish building the barriers that we need to build, have the electronic supplements to the barriers that we need, and have our continue with a Remain in Mexico policy, and work with our partners in Mexico and the other places like we did in the previous administration to ensure that these people don't come to the border in the first place. And that's what's going on, and it's really a quite simple fix. And the president can say anything he wants, but on January 20th, with the stroke of the pen, he literally destroyed security at the southern border. And now cartels are advertising on TikTok and on Facebook and on all these different mediums, recruiting people to come from all over the world. And the biggest misnomer about the border is that it's just people from Mexico and the Northern Triangle. 160 different countries were seized at the border in the last year. I just got back from El Paso. 5,500 in the El Paso sector alone were from Turkey. This isn't about the poverty crisis in Mexico and Central America. This is about a crisis worldwide where bad people are coming into our country. And they have what's called special immigrants category. Those are people from Yemen, like Kevin mentioned, and Iran and Iraq and those others, right? They're coming in at record numbers. And the numbers are going way up. The game is on and the bad guys know it. And it's a matter of time. And I talked to some of the gentlemen from New York earlier today. It's a matter of time before something really bad happens with some of these people coming across. And by the way, Kevin knew we were hounding Homeland Security for years since that happened when we went down to the border. They finally came out and admitted that 24 people on the terror watch list were seized at the border in last year, and that we expect a lot more coming again this year. So if that many are being seized, at least that many have gotten through. That's just the odds of it. So the bottom line is we got a lot of work to do. On day one, the legislature will be ready to fix it and fix it for good. Thanks, Kevin.
We'll do everything in our power to make sure Title 42 does not get lifted, but we have watched with this new administration, we do not have a secure border. And because of that, every single city is a border city. I just came back from Eagle Pass. You should spend a little time there. But you can talk to any officer here representing any place in America. They'll tell you there's an epidemic when it comes to fentanyl. And how they have to go out on calls now. Even if they apply CPR, they have a fear of overdosing based upon what fentanyl. But it is killing more Americans. And that's because of the border. And think for one moment, if somebody comes across this border on a terrorist watch list, why are they coming to America? Who are they meeting with? And what do they have planned? But we have an administration that continues to keep it open. Thank you for coming out, and for all the officers and families, thank you for what you do. We appreciate you.
Thank you all.